up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel, talking Wednesday's 7-game MLB slate. Got some early baseball going on right now, but fun slate tonight. 7 games to talk about. Back to Coors Field. Had a bunch of winners yesterday. We'll talk about that. But first, we got to welcome back Mr. Bryce Morrow, third and Schlong. Back from getting married, honeymoon. I know you've been back for a few days, Bryce, but this is our first show back together talking baseball. So, how was your trip? And I'm sure you're ready to be back on the grind and digging into baseball, all that good stuff. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
I'm doing wonderful. It felt 2 weeks felt like 2 months. When you're used to doing it every day. I think it's the most time I've been able to take off in a while, but we are successfully married. It felt good to get back, see our dog Mateo. He's currently asking, like, what are you doing? Doesn't remember that I do these shows every Wednesday with you going forward the rest of the season. And then, it kind of takes a bit to get back in the swing of things. I haven't been playing my normal 150 really. I've just been kind of because I feel it takes a week to get back into it, because it's once you get back into the pitching rotations and see what's going on. I never really taken a long break before, so I didn't really want to hop back into mega high stakes without the context of everything. So but I feel like I'm ready to go, and we had 8,500 this weekend too, so kind of feels like I'm recovering from a bender almost, but
good to have you back. And the sports calendar, the DFS world keeps on ticking even when you're gone. Taking a few breaks. Now, I don't think anything that long. Was it 2 full weeks or close to it? I think.
It was exactly 2 weeks when I was gone.
Yeah. It's good to get the recharge the batteries a little bit, but it's good to be back too, of course. And happy to have you back in the saddle. We do got to talk about a little bit about some of the big winners last night. Our guy AP, I think it was a 20K win, or maybe even a little bit more for AP. Big score. I think a single entry. He used the cheap pitcher combination, Waldron and Hunter Brown. I had that in the cores. I know he thanked me for that. And then he had the Guardians, which you had to have, which I did not play enough Guardians. So I had good lineups, good scores, but you weren't getting there without the likes of Josh Naylor and David Fry. And then, of course, JBC. I don't know how much money JBC was. Maybe you have an idea, Bryce, but it was a lot of money. He just kept posting more and more screenshots in the same thread. I was looking at them all like, man, this is pretty ridiculous. Obviously, a lot of the same players. It was one of those slates where there were just certain guys you just absolutely had to have, of course, led by Naylor, who I think had 2 3-run home runs in that one. So crazy slate. We do go back to Coors Field for, I don't know, kind of a similar game tonight between the Guardians and the Rockies. We'll obviously talk about that, what to do if you weren't on that like me. It feels a little dirty kind of chasing it after they got you last night, but I do think it's another really good spot for both offenses in Coors Field. So anyway, congrats to JBC, AP. I know we had a bunch more winners in the Discord. Congrats to everybody who got close to or to the top last night. We'll try to do it again tonight. With that, let's jump into this slate. We do start off in Atlanta, Washington Nationals, Atlanta Braves. Mackenzie Gore pitching for the Washington Nationals. He's been a guy I've been pretty high on this year. He's been, I would say, good, not great so far. He is coming off one of his better outings of the season, 8 strikeouts over 7 innings against Seattle. He'll take on this Braves team, who obviously is without Acuna for the rest of the year. And I personally did not see a 10 strikeout game coming for Jake Irvin against this team yesterday. And I know, Gore throws from the left side, Irvin from the right, but if Irvin can do it, I suppose Gore could too. I'm not super in on Gore here. I think the Braves probably bounce back. I like them better against lefties anyway. And then the Braves will start rookie making his MLB debut, Spencer Schwellenbach, mouthful there, but he's been really, really good in the minor leagues. Started the year in A-ball, pitched 2 games in Double-A, and just dominated both of them. I think he went 6 and 7 innings, like 8 and 9 strikeouts. Hasn't given up hardly any runs all year. I think he's like a second-round pick a couple of years ago. Pretty good prospect. It is, of course, a big jump going from Double-A up to the big leagues, but I think Schwellenbach's got a chance here at least. He is favored in this one. Braves sitting around minus 150. And Schwellenbach, I think, should be able to get close to 90 pitches would be my guess if things are going well for him. So I think we start off with a pretty interesting game here. Schwellenbach, Mackenzie Gore. I could be playing either pitcher, honestly, but I don't mind some of the bats against these guys. Obviously, any pitcher making their MLB debut is highly volatile. We don't really know what to expect. And even if he turns out to be a good pitcher, it can be rough. Nerves, whatever can get you as a young rookie. So interesting game to kick it off. I'll throw it over to you guys for Nationals and Braves.
Yeah. Speaking about last night, I was all over that cheap pitcher combo with you. I only played one lineup, so I was on the Yankees instead of the Indians. So that just kind of did you in from the start there. I don't really see a combo like that today that I like as much as I like Waldron and Hunter Brown yesterday.
100%. Not nothing close. Anywhere close to as good, I don't think.
Yeah, we were all over that yesterday, and definitely it certainly paid off for JBC, AP, and our users. So, hopefully we can find something like that today. I don't really think either of these guys are like the needle in the haystack that you're looking for. They'd both be in my 150 pool. Don't think they'd make my 3 max pool, and definitely not in like my single entry. I think it's really nice hitting weather there. It's hot, humid, the wind's blowing out. Guy making his debut at 7.5. I might be more interested if he came in at a significantly cheaper price here, but not really someone I'm looking to invest in heavily here. And then I know the Braves have been awful, and I'm with you on Gore for the season, but I just don't necessarily think this is the spot to chase all those strikeouts after Jake Irvin last night. I think Gore might go a little bit over-owned in this spot. I do kind of like the Braves righties here. They still have a lot of power in this lineup. It's not a bad team. They're going to get it turned around eventually, and it's kind of a matter of when, just because they've been so bad. I mean, they're taking up about 15% of the field each night and just doing absolutely nothing. I think they come in significantly lower here, and a lot of people will be chasing quarters. So I don't mind the Braves as a contrarian option. If I was making 3 teams, I would probably have one Brave stack here. I'd probably have no Nationals. They would definitely make my pool in 150. As you said, guy making his MLB debut. He's coming up. He has great numbers in Double-A, but it's Double-A baseball. Nationals are. I really don't think they're that bad of a lineup. They're not. They haven't been my favorite team to attack in general this year.
Yeah.
And they do like to run, and some of these guys, could have, the Spencer Schwellenbach guy. If he's gonna be able to hold major league hitters on base, like C.J. Abrams gets on, that's something they might want to test. And if they can run on, they'll continue to run on. So if I'm playing the Nationals, I like them more as a stack, obviously, as opposed to some one-offs here, as they're not a team that has the most power. Not my favorite team, but I would have, maybe about 5% Nationals in my 150.
Yeah, I'm playing 5 lineups like I normally do. I like that 4 max 250, so I play that, and then I play another 250 worth on another team. Been working out pretty good, and I'm considering putting Schwellenbach on one of those teams. I don't know what you have for ownership numbers, Bryce. Sabersim has Schwellenbach currently below 2% ownership, and Mackenzie Gore up at 27%. Obviously, pretty close. I think Schwellenbach will be higher and Gore a little bit lower than that. But judging by your reaction, it seems like you might agree with that.
Schwellenbach, I could see him coming in low. People don't really know what he is or like how long of a leash he is, but that seems way too high on Gore for me. I
Yeah.
think he'd probably be about half that.
Yeah, DC loves these double A. It's true. It's true. I do like to go cheap at starting pitcher when I can. There's no question about it. And yeah, it works out sometimes. Obviously, I didn't get there, but that was the build last night. Cheap starting pitcher. And part of the reason I'm still considering him, I haven't made a final decision. There's really nobody below him that I'm willing to play. Bryce Wilson would be the only other guy that I would consider putting on a roster, and I don't love that play either. So yeah, I do have Schwellenbach at least still in consideration. And yeah, I don't think Gore is going to be quite as owned as Saber predicts, but I do think he'll get significantly more ownership than Schwellenbach gets, and I like the Schwellenbach side better. So I just think he might be a little under-owned compared to what he's got. And he's supposed to have pretty good stuff, and the results have been there. So I know it's the jump from Double A to the big leagues, but at least for pitchers, like if you've got the pitches and you can locate them, that kind of takes care of itself. I think hitters coming up have a much bigger adjustment period to go through in general, where if you've got the pitches and you can put them where you want to, you can get through any lineup. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Schwellenbach pitch well here. It'll take a little time to learn his name, but yeah, I do have some interest there. We'll see if ownership updates, and I wouldn't want to play him if he's like 10 or 15% owned, but if he's really going to be super, super low, I don't mind taking a shot there. I am with you though. I think the Atlanta bats look good, and I don't mind going to the Nationals either. I mean, I do like him, but part of that's the price and the ownership, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Nationals do some damage. Like we said, very, very good hitting weather in Atlanta tonight. Next game on the slate, Toronto Blue Jays and Chicago White Sox. The Blue Jays were one of the teams that led me astray last night. Played them kind of over the Guardians a little bit too much. They were close to breaking out. They did have, Schneider had a good game. I think Kiner Falefa, Springer down at the bottom of the order did pretty well, and they were close to putting up a big, big number, but didn't quite get there. They get another really, really good spot here. Yesterday they faced Jake Woodford, I believe, and tonight it's Chris Flexen. The White Sox they just don't have any pitching. Flexen bad at just about everything, and yeah, the Blue Jays will have strong matchups throughout this game. It is cool in Chicago, but we do have decent wins blowing out to right field. So I like the Blue Jays again. I'll go back to them. And then Alex Manoah pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he tricked some people in this last start. He had two good ones in a row against Minnesota, Tampa Bay. Then kind of went back to the Manoah we've known recently. Gave up 6 runs to the Tigers. I don't really know what to think of Manoah at this point, Bryce. I think you could make a case for him. You can make a case for almost any pitcher against the White Sox. Where do you stand with Manoah? I assume you have no interest in Flexen. And then what are you doing with the Blue Jays bats in this one?
Yeah, no interest in Flexen. Pitching's so weak on this. Like I might include him in my 150. Like I don't think I'm going to click off the button, but I can't imagine I get more than 1 or 2 teams with him here. Definitely prefer the Blue Jays side for bats here. I think they left 13 guys on base last night or something pretty absurd. They were super close to putting up a monster score. Like they had some individual bats who did well, but yeah, I think it's a lineup that's starting to heat up. On the road against the White Sox is pretty much as good as you're going to get. You have an awful starting pitcher. I don't think Flexen's any good, and you have an atrocious bullpen behind them. So, they're not a team that like pinch hits either. So you don't really have to worry about that with guys that are platooning and whatnot. So, I think they're right up there. They're probably my third. I'd say they're definitely my third favorite stack of the day here. Like them a good amount here. I think you can stack the entire team. They're not overly expensive. And you kind of need like some some bats that aren't that expensive on this slate unless you want to play some of these dust ball pitchers, just because you don't. There's decent options at the top, but I don't see anything for you guys here at the bottom like we had yesterday, and I know DC agrees with that. So yeah, no flexing for me. Decent amount of Blue Jays. Manoah, I'm a Manoah hater, and I'm going to continue to be.
Yeah, me too.
I don't buy it. He had a couple good games. Thankfully, they were. Well, I wasn't here because I definitely would have been stacking against him during those. I don't love the White Sox as a 5-man stack ever. I'm going to say this: they're absurdly cheap, and I will have some White Sox 3-man stacks here. You can run on Manoah too. You got Jolks leading off. I think he's a very strong play. You got Nicky Lopez hitting second at 2.3K. Like, that's a really – and I think Gavin Sheets is a pretty decent hitter, to be honest, at 3.4K. There's a very cheap 3-man stack right there that, could get a lot of at-bats here, is in a pretty decent spot and should go, almost unowned. So, that stuff like that is what's going to help you fit in some of these expensive pitchers and bats that we want to. But I definitely do prefer the Toronto side if I had to choose them straight up, obviously.
Yeah, I changed the format of my article a little bit. We're now just kind of writing my absolute favorite play hitter at each position once you take into account pricing, leverage, ownership, upside, all that. And Gavin Sheets was the first baseman for me, hitting third here against Alek Manoah, who really sucks against lefties who get leverage, right, against Manoah, who we think is going to be around 25% owned. And I know Sheets hasn't done a ton this year, but some upside there. So I really do like him to play him in the outfield, of course, as well. And yeah, Manoah, I would have more interest here if the velocity has been in decline in each start that he's pitched. So I just don't know what to expect. I'm with you there, but I do lean the side of not falling for the Manoah trap. But I mean, I could honestly see a good game. It's the White Sox. Any pitcher who's thrown well is capable of it, and certainly Manoah is. I just like going elsewhere. And yeah, I mean, Chicago White Sox stacks. Why not? They're dirt cheap. You can. You may put a 4v4, right? Put 4 and 4. Put 4 White Sox in there. Put 4 Guardians, something like that. I think does make some sense. And yeah, Blue Jays high up on both of our lists on this 7-game slate. Chicago Cubs and Milwaukee Brewers up next. We've got Bryce Wilson on the hill for Milwaukee. He was one of the cheap pitchers that I'm at least considering. Reasonable matchup here against the Cubs. He's at home. Pitched okay this year, kind of in a league average-ish arm, which on this slate at 6K is not it's not unenticing, I would say. So I do think Bryce Wilson is at least in consideration. And then Shota Imanaga pitching for the Cubs. He has been lights out all year. Hasn't had a bad start yet. Obviously coming over from Japan in the offseason. Really showed no signs of slowing down. Now, he's obviously not going to have an ERA below 1 the entire year. It's just not going to happen. So there is regression coming at some point, but I do expect him to continue to pitch very well. And the matchup is okay against the Brewers. They do have some scary bats. I mean, I like Ortiz, some atop the lineup, Contreras, Yelich, Adames, Sanchez. These guys can hit lefties for sure. But Imanaga in play, 10.6K. I do think that's a pretty high price tag for not the highest strikeout upside matchup in the world. But yeah, Imanaga, he's got to at least be in consideration if you've got a cheaper stack. If you're stacking the White Sox, for instance, and you've got the funds to spend up at both pitcher spots, I do think Imanaga on the short list. And yeah, like I said, Bryce Wilson, a reasonable play in my eyes as well. I don't love the bats here really on either side. The Cubs stack could certainly get there against the Brewers. I don't mind like a leadoff cheap Joey Ortiz for the Milwaukee Brewers, but overall, not my favorite game for bats here. Where do you stand, Bryce, on the Cubs and the Brewers?
Completely agree. I don't really like the bats here. I think it's one of the better pitching spots on the slate. I think Bryce Wilson is your guy if you're looking to go cheap. He would definitely be my favorite guy that lets you fit in these expensive bats if you want like a full stack. I think the cheapest combo that you can go would be like to me at least, like a Bryce Wilson and like Bailey Over would be like the absolute cheapest. I think that you could go for bats. So, I don't think he's anywhere near like how much we liked Waldron and Brown yesterday, but he's playable on this slate. And if you have a team that's super expensive, like the Guardians put up, a ton of runs again, you might need someone like him. And unless you can find like the super cheap stack to fit them in with. So I do have some interest in Bryce Wilson here. I'm likely going to be over the field. I'm seeing around 10% to 15% on him. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets into a little bit higher than that, just because
that was going to be my question, because we saw Waldron. Thankfully, Thankfully, maybe I didn't know because I played him on like every lineup that I had. But he got steamed way up. I mean, he was predicted to be around 20, 25%. And ended up, 40 to 50%, I think?
He was 43% in high stakes, and I think he was, high 30s and lower stakes. He just had a good K prop, home favorite against the Marlins in a super low total game. I can definitely see that getting steamed up more than, a home underdog. It's still a low total game here, but I think he might get steamed up just more out of necessity as opposed to out of like talent or, the strength
and he's been around
of his matchup.
People probably don't have a good opinion of Bryce Wilson. So,
the Cubs are a high variance lineup. They strike out a lot, but they also carry a lot of upside. So, I wouldn't mind, being over on the Cubs here too. Just as a leverage play, if he does get steamed up a lot, or just in general, I think it's a decent spot to attack here for both sides, just due to how high variance the Cubs team is. Imanaga, he's the best pitcher on this slate, in my opinion. It's also super hard to pay up for someone like that today. So, I think his price might keep ownership in check. I want to be over on him. So this is why I'm trying to, find, some cheap batters for you guys, some cheaper pitching options. But Imanaga and the Indians would be like the nuts if you can get them. But, that's pretty hard to do. It's pretty much you have to play like the White Sox stack or, Bryce Wilson with them. And, it's doable. But, I don't know if I'd go there on my main team. I'm likely playing one lineup tonight. But in my 150, I want to be over on the Cubs. I want to be over on both pitchers, and I have zero interest in Brewers bats tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not much interest in the Brewers, and Imanaga, if he fits, I have no problem playing him. It's just I do have other priorities in my lineup, specifically some of these big bats that might come first. But no issue whatsoever with Imanaga if he does fit a build. Kansas City and Minnesota Twins up next. Pretty kind of average weather in Minneapolis tonight, 70 degrees, some winds blowing in. Should play somewhat pitcher friendly. And I do think both these pitchers are in play here. We got Seth Lugo going for the Royals, who's been pretty damn awesome, frankly, all year long, at least in terms of the results. It's got a whip below 1, ERA below 2. He's 8-1. Is Seth Lugo. He's going deep into games. He's gone 7+ innings in 4 of the last 6 games. Regularly throws over 100 pitches, so his leash is just about as long as anybody. And he faces a Twins lineup that does have some pretty big swing and miss in it overall. I do think Lugo will be a little bit overlooked here just because of the price. He is an underdog as well, slight underdog to Ober and the Twins. And then, Bailey Ober at 8K. You mentioned him in passing earlier. He's been more up and down this season than I would have expected, but really it's just that first outing of the year, actually against the same Kansas City team back on March 31st, that's kind of holding back a lot of his numbers. He's been pretty damn good since then. Some like workload duration concerns. They sometimes pull him after 5 innings if things aren't going super well, if it's a close game, whatever. But Ober, a good pitcher, does face a little bit of a depleted Royals lineup. Will be without Vinny Pasquantino tonight. So yeah, Ober I think needs to be in play here. I'm sure he'll get a good amount of ownership. Looking at maybe 20%. I would guess a little bit higher for Bailey Ober. That's what Sabres got him at right now. They've got Lugo down at 10%. I got interest in both these guys and not a ton on either of these offenses. What about you, Bryce? Kansas City and Minnesota here.
Yeah, I think Ober comes in here decently owned. I think the chalk pitching combo here is going to be Verlander and then one of either Ober or Manoah. It just kind of leaves you at over $4,000 a bat, kind of like the sweet spot in terms of trying to pay up for some hitters here, which people definitely want to do. I like both pitchers. Ober's pitching outs prop is pretty good, so the length doesn't really worry me. It's minus 150 over 17.5. So, they're predicting him to throw about 6 innings here, which, is pretty solid. It's a low total game. I think he has a decent amount of upside. I think he's likely him and Verlander, I would say, in Manoah would probably, I'm never going to call Manoah safe, but those would be like the safer mid-tier options here. So I think they do carry decent ownership. I don't plan on going crazy on Ober. I like him. I don't love him. Same goes for Seth Lugo. I don't really love bats in this game. I would much rather take a shot on the Cubs than one of these teams, or get some extra Toronto bats, or and especially the teams that we haven't really gotten to. So I see myself probably around 25% over in my 150. Probably around 20 to 25% on Lugo in my 150 as well. So yeah, that's pretty much where my head's at. Don't really love leverage bats in this game. I don't think any of these pitchers are going to be high enough to where you would really want to take too many leverage shots against them. So yeah, more mini stacks for me. I'm not going to eliminate the guys in the pool or anything. You still have some high upside bats in this game. I'm never going to take Bobby Witt out of the pool. It's just not something. I likely won't get a ton of him tonight, just based on all the other expensive bats I want to play. But yeah, I don't really take guys out of the pool, as I say on the show a lot. But it's not stacks I'm actively looking to target.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to bats here, it's the bigger bats on both sides, specifically Witt, Salvador Perez, who can have a big game against anybody. And Bailey Ober does give up his fair share of home runs, a fly ball arm in general, which, plays pretty well in the current baseball environment. So I'm with you. Both these pitchers look good, and bats in this game will be few and far between in my lineups. That brings us to Coors Field. A nice day here in Denver. Should be 75, 80 degrees. Light winds blowing out, similar to yesterday, frankly. Two lefties on the hill, neither of whom are, in my opinion, really any good. Logan Allen had some hype coming into the year and has actually been decent in his last 3 outings. Overall, though, his numbers on the year, not great. I think he's given up 11 home runs so far this season, which is a very, very high number at this point in the year. That's going to play super well in this weather in Coors Field, obviously. And the Rockies, for all their holes in their lineup and everywhere else on the team, they do have some decent right-handed power. 8 right-handers in the lineup. Just Ryan McMahon in the lineup from the left side. So Rockies got to be in play. And then, of course, the Guardians, who just absolutely broke the slate last night, of course, are in play. Highest total of the day here, no surprise, sitting at 11. That's 6 on the Guardian side, 5 runs predicted on the Rocky side. It's anytime it's the, Coors Field, it's kind of a choice of, do I want to go there, or are there better spots? I do think there's plenty of other spots you could go to, but hard to get completely away from this game, in my opinion. I do think you want the right-handed bats on both sides. And I don't think we have the Guardians lineup yet, but I do anticipate pretty much the whole bottom half of their lineup, 6 through 9, I think are going to be pinch hit risks in this game, which kind of makes for, an interesting scenario, given that obviously a lot of people are going to want to play the Guardians anyway. So talk to us, Bryce. What are you doing with Cleveland and Colorado here?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see like a Johan Rodriguez or Jonathan Rodriguez come in, super high owned, assuming he's in the lineup here, just because of how cheap he is. And, I think he's pretty much a guaranteed platoon for like a
Yeah.
Will Brennan type of guy. But I would be definitely worried about the right-handed hitters hitting at the bottom of the order. I wouldn't really worry about Tyler Freeman. He's been leading off for them. I think he's safer, but yeah, definitely something to look out for. I mean, they can do their damage in one swing, and you don't have to worry about it.
Sure.
But people are going to be looking for cheap bats to play in cores, and he's kind of the one that stands out as like the big salary saver. Is he's only 3.2K. But you have guys like Brennan and Manzardo. If they're not in the lineup, are pretty much locks to come in, I would think, against a right-handed reliever here for multiple guys at the bottom of the order. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on. Definitely prefer the top 5 for that reason. And I'm fine playing Jimenez and Naylor, lefty. So that's kind of where my head's at for the Guardians. I thought they'd come in super high owned yesterday, and they were actually significantly lower owned than like the Yankees, which was kind of mind blowing to me. If I could go back in time and get the Guardians at lower ownership than the Yankees, I would have done that for sure. I thought the Yankees
When
would
the,
be
when the
where
Cardinals
ownership
took over
played.
and the Guardians were low owned, I was like, all right,
Yeah, I was like that. Yeah, I was like, I don't love my Yankees stack now, but I had the cheap pitcher combination locked in, and so there wasn't really anything else to spend on. And there's nothing you could have done to pivot. I think the Yankees had about 20 warning track outs last night. It was kind of ridiculous how the ball wasn't really flying in LA the way I thought it would. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind here. It feels bad chasing tonight, but I'm going to have a bunch of Guardians. I think the Rockies are, pretty strong leverage plays here. And by leverage, I mean like off of higher owned Guardians, not off of Logan Allen. I'm definitely not pitching either of these guys. I don't think you have a ton of pinch hit risk in this lineup. I'm not really sure why Chris Bryant isn't starting, but like I wouldn't be worried about him coming in for like a Brenton Doyle type of guy here. I think the only guy to be worried about would be like Charlie Blackmon coming in, but I think these guys are decently safe. I think Montero would probably be the biggest pinch hit risk in my mind, but yeah, I mean he's 3.4K going up against Logan Allen hitting 5th. I think that's a pretty solid play here. So I would definitely not ignore the Rockies side of this game either. They put up a lot of runs in their own right last night, and Logan Allen is an elite matchup. They're just not as good of a team, but it's baseball. The Guardians are what, minus 130, 140. So yeah, definitely going to be stacking both sides of this game.
Hard to know what the Rockies are going to do with the pinch hit stuff. They're just so stupid as an organization that you never know for sure. But Blackmon, Bryant could come in. I would think if Bryant was feeling good, he would be in the lineup to begin with against the lefty.
Yes, against the lefty. I think Blackmon would be the one that would come in that they can bring off the bench.
Yeah, possible. The 3 outfielders for the Rockies, they all have significant holes in their game, but Brenton Doyle, Sean Bouchard, and Hunter Goodman all have a lot of power. 6, 8, and 9 hitters down there. Now, like you said,
and they'll run too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I like those guys quite a bit. They're all kind of in that upper 3, lower 4K range. Again, some pinch hit risk, but I'm willing to take the chance because these guys have legit power. Logan Allen gives up a ton of home runs, and I think we'll see at least one of those guys go yard. Maybe we'll get a little bottom of the order Rockies action. Don't mind stacking those guys up whatsoever. Anything else to add in this game? I would have my favorite play by far on Cleveland is David Fry at catcher. I'm sure he'll be very, very popular, but man, this guy kind of out of nowhere this year, but he is just absolutely crushing it. And obviously the week. Go ahead.
In stacks, I think my favorite plays here would actually be the lefties, just because, you saw what Naylor came in yesterday. It's just kind of hard to prioritize all these expensive hitters. So, like, in a mini stack, I would prioritize the right-handers. In the 5-man stacks, I would definitely get these lefty hitters in with them, because you are betting that he's going to be out of the game pretty quickly, and you get a trash Rockies bullpen.
No doubt about it. Let's get to the last 2 games on this slate. New York Yankees and the LA Angels. I don't get them all right, Bryce, but I was on Luis Gil before his first start even of the entire year.
We did that show. We had the first Luis Gil slate of the year together. I remember that from earlier in the season.
Yeah, I've got a couple fun season-long teams that are anchored by like pick 400 Luis Gil. And he was decent to start the year. But, man, he has turned it on recently. And he's one of those guys that, I talk about where it's just not necessarily in the numbers, but you can watch a guy pitch and you can see it, that the upside is just oozing out of him. And Luis Gil has been lights out in these last 2 starts, 22 strikeouts in his last 2 combined outings. Now, they were against the White Sox and the Seattle Mariners, so slight grain of salt there, but he doesn't really show any signs of slowing down to me. I don't know how long the Yankees are going to let him kind of stay, in the rotation, just because he's coming off injury and all that stuff. But for now, he's a full go out there, and he's just absolutely electric. He gets this Angels team who I fear them much more against lefties. Rengifo, Ward, Ohapi, Adele, Neto, all these guys swing the bat, or they should at least swing the bat better against lefties. So I like Luis Gil's chances here to rack up some more strikeouts. He is my SP1 on the day. I will say, 10.3K is an expensive price tag for a pitcher who's only done it, for 2 months, as good as he's been, especially recently. So I don't think he is like, some guarantee. This isn't the Jacob deGrom of old. He's not that good. But on this slate, he is my SP1. I do think he's the most likely pitcher to get you double-digit strikeouts, to give you a 30-plus fantasy point outing against the Angels. So I'm in on Luis Gil. I'll pay the price tag. And then on the other side, Tyler Anderson having an awesome year, surprising year for the Angels. Hasn't had a ton of strikeouts, has been really good at run prevention. Something that I really wouldn't expect to continue going forward, especially tonight against this Yankees team. You mentioned a frustrating Yankees stack last night. A lot of long fly balls that didn't quite get over the fence. Maybe they will tonight, though. We know how much power this team has up and down the lineup, especially right in the middle of it, of course, with Judge, Soto, and Stanton. But I do like the Yankees some here. I'm guessing they'll be somewhat high owned, but I do think Coors holds them in check a little bit. No interest in Tyler Anderson for me. And then I'm not going to the Angels bats against Luis Gil. It's a pretty straightforward game for me in this one. What about you, Bryce? Yankees and Angels.
Yeah, I don't really have any interest in the Angels here as well. Gil's just a really good pitcher. I think you're better allocated elsewhere. Like, I'm not gonna take these guys out, but yeah, it's simply not a good matchup for them. I much prefer the matchup against Nestor yesterday. But yeah, Nestor's just had so many issues on the road. I don't really see any. I don't see any flaws in Gil's game. Like, he doesn't really walk people. He has a ton of strikeout upside. You could hit a one-off here, but I think it's really hard for Gil to get like completely batted around. I just think it's better to invest elsewhere. I really want to play the Yankees flop lag tonight against Tyler Anderson. I think they're going to come in way lower owned than the Guardians tonight, but I thought that yesterday and didn't happen, so I'm kind of interested to see where it all ends up today. I'm willing to go right back to the well with them, though. They're just such an elite powered speed combo team. Soto and Judge are, unbelievable. And, I think that, with the expensive pitching today combined with the Guardians' outburst last night, I think these guys, especially Soto, I could see that. I can see people playing Judge as one off against the lefty. His numbers are just absolutely insane against them. But yeah, I'll allocate a decent amount towards the Yankees tonight, and they'll definitely be buys for me. Angels don't really have any interest in.
Yeah,
I didn't really talk about Heel. I don't like him quite as much as you. I have him up there with like Yaga. But these guys are a little bit harder to get to. I think the chalk is going to be a little bit in the 8K range. So if you go with one expensive guy, I think your teams are automatically going to be a bit different. So I'm probably aiming for about 25% Heel. Is kind of how I'm going into building my pitching allocations for this slate.
Yeah, I'm not going all in on Heel or anything, but I do certainly like him. Do expect him to pitch well, and excited to see him get back out there. I'm with you on the Yankees, though. Don't sleep on Giancarlo Stanton. Gleyber Torres starting to hit a little bit too. Obviously, the guys with power from the Yankees, mostly what you want, in my opinion, against Tyler Anderson. Last game on the slate, another interesting game to wrap us up here. Low total in this one, sitting at 7 to I don't really think Justin Verlander is that great anymore, but he is going to be the chalk, it looks like. To me, Bryce Saber does have him as the highest owned pitcher, and I just can't do it. I'm not playing Justin Verlander as chalk on this slate. Just not a believer in his at the moment. Now, he's mostly proved me wrong. He's got 2 big outings in 2 of his last 3. I will say he's been pretty matchup dependent, which I guess would be a mark in his favor in this matchup against the Mariners. Was good at Oakland, at Detroit, struggled against the Yankees and Milwaukee. Goes on the road here to Seattle, who's obviously a team to target in general. No question about it. We did it with Hunter Brown last night, and I get why people would go to Verlander. I'm sure Brown's success maybe even plays into that a little bit. And so that makes sense. I just have trouble with chalk Justin Verlander. I'll probably be grabbing some power bats from Seattle for the leverage. And then George Kirby pitching for Seattle Mariners. He's been a little bit shakier this year than last, been under 10 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. And I don't really target Houston much, honestly, with opposing pitching, especially right-handed pitching. So I'm not playing Kirby at 8,500. I do think guys like Tucker and Alvarez are very strong one-offs in this game. Kirby, is a very unique pitcher. His big thing is he doesn't allow any walks, so it doesn't really work well to stack against him. But I think one-offs against Kirby can absolutely play. He's given up 9 home runs on the year already. And listen, if you're paying $6,500 for Kyle Tucker, the most expensive bat on the slate, you don't really want him to get walked anyway. You need some production out of him when he's up there. So I kind of like these Astros lefties as really, really low-owned one-off type home run plays. And then, I'll grab some Seattle too. So I guess I'm kind of low on this game, more going to bats for leverage. I'm sure I'm guessing at least you'll have more interest in Verlander than I do. But where do you stand on Houston and Seattle?
Couldn't agree more. I think Verlander's chalk is at 8.8K. I think there's definitely paths to him failing. Seattle's kind of a high upside, but also high strikeout team. It's kind of like the Cubs matchup, just even more extreme. They strike out a ton against right-handed pitching. I think Verlander is clearly the chalk pitcher on this slate. So if you want to go for max leverage here, like a Seattle mini without Verlander, would definitely do it. That being said, in my 150, I'm probably going to have around 30% Verlander, and I think that's going to be below the field. I see Verlander, probably around 40 here. It's a really solid matchup. On paper, he probably seems like the best. He seems like the best pitcher on the board, but it's not by a huge margin. It's by, in my opinion, like a small margin. So, I think he should be owned. I think he'll be my highest owned guy, but I'm not going high on anyone here just because no pitching really stands out. I'm not taking many stands there. Probably going to take them on my bats. Don't mind playing some Seattle like one-offs or 3-mans. 5-mans, little tougher sell to me today, but I'm not going to be eliminating them in my 150. Other side of the game, I don't really have any interest in like the expensive Houston bats other than like a small stack or one-offs. I just think there's so many better 5-mans to get to today. But as you said, Kirby does have his issues. I'm likely going to be around 10% on Kirby, and like a Yordan Alvarez one-off. I think it's a really strong play here, and I don't think he's going to be owned like whatsoever. So Houston minis would kind of do it for me there. Don't really love the game quite as much as most people. I think you're in agreement, and I think almost even a little more extreme of a stand on Verlander here.
Yeah, Saber has Kyle Tucker and Verlander at 0.3% each. They'll be higher than that, but that's about as low as numbers you're ever going to see on a projection. So I'll probably take a shot or two on those guys, sprinkle them in some lineups. Don't need to go crazy with the whole stack or anything like that, but wouldn't be surprised to see one or both of those guys take Kirby deep. All right, let's get to the fun stuff here to wrap up this show. We'll start, of course, with the stacks. Favorite stack, contrarian stack. I'll start us off. I'm going back to the Blue Jays. They were my favorite stack last night. They're very, very close to busting that game open multiple times. Didn't quite get the job done. And maybe they do here against Chris Flexen, who is almost as bad as Mr. Woodford yesterday. Bad bullpen behind him as well. Really like the Blue Jays to do some damage against Mr. Flexen. Favorite contrarian stack? Going with the Mariners against Verlander. I just don't think he's that great. Get these guys super low owned. You get leverage against the field. They're relatively cheap. I think a lot of reasons to take a roll of the dice on the Mariners as contrarian stack. Over to you, Bryce. Favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack?
I do like Toronto, but I got to go with the Indians as my favorite stack. Especially the expensive ones. I'd be a little bit worried about the pinch hit risk. Favorite low owned stack is going to be the Cubs here. I think Bryce spells his name like a dumbass too. I think he's going to come in way higher owned than people think, and I think the Cubs offer up a lot of leverage here.
All right, let's do most important pitcher. Who do you think you'll be higher on compared to the field, Bryce, in terms of pitching tonight?
Higher on, I think it's going to be looking at ownerships here. Seth Lugo, seeing him super low owned. I think 9.6 is. He seems pretty similar to me with Verlander. He's just $800 more expensive for coming in at fifth of the ownership. Definitely gonna be over on Lugo. Favorite under pitcher here, looking at ownerships, definitely Manoah.
Yeah, I won't have Manoah either. Luis Gil, I think, will be my most important pitcher. We'll have him on 2 or 3 probably of my 5 main lineups tonight. Home run call for the people. Going with Mr. Gordon Alvarez off of George Kirby and the Mariners bullpen. What about you, Bryce? Give us a home run call.
I will go with Christopher Morel off Bryce Wilson.
Love it. And then we'll wrap it up with overall favorite offensive player. He's chalk, but for me, David Fry at catcher, almost too good to pass up. I know he'll be very, very popular, but he is going to be on many of my lineups as well. Your favorite overall hitter today on the slate, Bryce?
Jose Ramirez. I cored him in cash yesterday. I don't really see how you get away from him. But it's baseball.
He feels like there's almost no such thing as a floor for hitters in baseball, but he feels like he actually has somewhat of a floor in this game. Some like 10 fantasy points. I'm sure he'll get a stone zero now, but yeah, you can't say that very often for Ramirez. It does feel more true than usual. That'll do it for this show. Appreciate all you guys watching. I think we'll be having a normal show tomorrow. It's like a split slate. I think there's 4 games early, 4 games late. So we'll do probably a shorter, slow show. Me and Mangone at the normal 4:45 Eastern time slot. So I'm sure we'll see a bunch of you guys there. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. Hopefully we will see some more RPS logos up top the leaderboards tonight. But that'll do it for this show. For Third and Schlong, I'm Draft Sheet. We're out of here.